Anytime a player fails, there's a mistake somewhere along the line by the organization. Maybe you evaluated him wrong and you shouldn't have drafted him. Maybe you didn't give him the infrastructure he needed. Maybe you rushed him out there. Maybe you didn't give him the support that he needed. But that's always the way that we should analyze this. I don't understand the idea of blaming the player and saying the player is a bust. That's not their fault. They've done something to show that they have the ability to get drafted this high. If it doesn't work there, and part of it might be because we've started to convince everyone that the only way to win in the Super Bowl is with a quarterback on a rookie deal. So the sooner we can get him out there, the sooner we can get him comfortable, the better chance we have to win. But the truth of the matter is, quarterbacks develop by adding a little bit more pressure every year. Yeah. You need to put them in. All of our best quarterbacks in the NFL came into good situations, and then they grew into better quarterbacks because we didn't, with exception, I guess Joe Burrow might be the only quarterback who came in a situation that was bad and he turned out to be good. Everyone else came in a good situation.
Yeah, even then, though, they had been building up around him to the point where they had better infrastructure in place than they used to. Look, I think you look at Carolina right now, that they make the evaluation on Bryce Young that not only is he not progressing, he's regressing. And leaving him in there at this point would be detrimental to him and his confidence and to the team, right? You don't want to lose your locker room, right? You're out there non-competitive every week, and the team's practicing with Andy Dalton thinking, yeah, this guy could at least keep us in games. So you have to keep that in mind, too. I go back to, I had conversations with teams ahead of the draft last year, right? That were teams that were evaluating all the quarterbacks, evaluating Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud. And I remember somebody, this is not Carolina, somebody from another team said, we had him on the board, on the whiteboard. Never seen anybody with a better command of it. Like the best we've ever had in the room in terms of understanding the concepts and all this kind of stuff. That's not the quarterback we've seen in Carolina. He hasn't looked like that. I don't think his failure is because he's small at this point. I think it's because maybe lack of confidence, maybe lack of infrastructure. I think it's, I don't know. I just don't know where it goes from here. Like, can they go back to him at some point?
Lack of anything. He played 11 games with Frank. He played 6 games with Taylor. Then he plays 2 with Canales. Like, how do you think you're going to progress? You have 3 different systems you're bringing in or having, to make changes, terminology, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. There's a lot going on. And by the way, the dudes on that side of the ball are really smart. And they're going to give you a lot of different looks that you're not prepared for. So if you don't have some kind of consistency, it's going to make it even worse. Yeah. It's an organizational failure. And Tepper is the one who the bag should fall to him.
Right.
Because ultimately, he makes these convictions and choices and decisions. And everybody's like, oh, like you said, no conviction in Frank, no conviction in the quarterback, no conviction. We're going to change it. We're going to blow it up. We're going to go chase what Houston's doing. That's a freaking joke. Man, like it makes no sense.
To Graziano's point, when Bryce Young got drafted, I was sitting right there. No one said, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe they just took him ahead of C.J. Stroud." That wasn't Mel's reaction. It wasn't Lewis's reaction. It wasn't Booger's reaction. It wasn't anybody's reaction. He was the consensus choice to be the first pick in that draft. Mel, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, I think first of all, in terms of Bryce Young, yes, consensus. I said when he was drafted at his size, he has to be the great processor. He has to have all that. We haven't seen that yet develop because he hasn't had continuity. Continuity within a system, within an organization is critical. Dan Morgan was there when they drafted him, so at least the GM says, hey, I love Bryce Young. He was there when they drafted him. He was part of that decision-making, right? But there's a new head coach, new system, and as I said, played in 1 series of a preseason game. That's it. I know joint practices are important during the week leading up to the game, more so than the game itself. But when Derek Carr says, I got to play in some preseason games, I got to play in 2 because I got a new offensive coordinator, a new system, that speaks volumes to me.
That's fact.
We will talk much more about this on the First Draft podcast with Mel and Field and me, which will be available Thursday at noon as it is every single week. Mel, thank you for jumping in. Let's stay in the Eagles division. The Cowboys hype train was rolling after week 1. It just screeched to a halt in week 2. And a man who is never at a loss for words when it comes to the Cowboys is Stephen A. Smith. This is how he opened First Take yesterday.
Howdy! How do you do on this beautiful Monday morning? You know, Shay, I know you're there, baby. Let me tell you something right now. I just pulled out a map, and I was looking because somebody told me there was a city in Texas called Alice, Texas. Alice, Texas. I said, where is it? I never heard of it. And then I spotted it at AT&T Stadium yesterday. All you got to do is take the D off of Dallas, and there you got it. The Alice Cowboys. The Alice Cowboys. No D whatsoever. First Takes in the house. Holla at your boys.
I mean,
Man,
there's
this is outstanding. This is
So
an
good.
outstanding performance.
Turn
right
with
there.
the
It's
chair.
outstanding.
A slow turn.
It just doesn't get better than that, right? And the beauty of it is that he's right.
God, they were
He's saying
terrible.
a lot of crazy things. You were there.
I was.
Did it look as bad in person as it looked on TV?
Considerably worse. I mean, like, they couldn't do anything. It was. I mean, the Saints come in like it was. Look, the Saints have something going. I mean, at 91 points in the first 2 games, you got to pay attention to that. But my goodness, I mean, we were on the countdown talking about how good Dallas defense was against Cleveland week 1, how they responded to Mike Zimmer. They're more disciplined, all this stuff. All of a sudden, we're at halftime, and I'm like, I hope nobody was watching my segment on countdown because I sound like an idiot talking about this defense and how good it was.
So we spent a lot of time on this yesterday. I mean, Neek, the question is it a bad game, which obviously it is, or is it a bad sign? Does it mean that whatever it is they thought they needed to fix from last year, they clearly have not fixed?
Absolutely a bad sign. They couldn't stop the run, and they were getting pushed all over the place. The D line is in the laps of the linebackers.
Here's some plays.
They're running the outside zone, and they're falling outside their gaps. The linebackers can't get downhill. It's just ugly. They get to the second level pretty good. I mean, Jeff is out there getting excited because those O linemen are destroying them up front. Look at him. He put him on his back.
Oh, it's so bad. It doesn't fit yet. And so it is a bad sign because you're in week 2 and you could tell the defensive players don't know where their force is, where they're fitting, meaning where they're supposed to be in the defense. So the reason the Saints had so much success on the edge is because you got 2 guys slanting inside and nobody going to replace them. Or you had a little body who's taking on 2 big bodies outside and the big body's going inside. It just didn't fit. And Zimmer's new to it, but I will say this. The worst part for me is the physical beating. It's not just alignment. It is the physical beating that the Saints displayed. It doesn't matter what defense you can't get knocked back 3 yards repeatedly. And that's what was happening. When you have linebackers in DB's laps or defensive linemen in linebackers' back, I'm going to let you know, when you walk to the sideline, there's not a better feeling in the world, minus having a child, that you go, this is what life is about. We are dominating. Yeah. We are imposing our will on another group of men and showing what dominance looks like. That is what the Saints did to Dallas on Sunday.
You may need a cigarette after I give you this stat. This stat. The Saints had 134 yards rushing before contact in this game. So I'm going to ask you a variation of the same question. Bad game, bad sign. Is it fit or is it is it scheme or is it personnel? Did they just not have the people, or are they just not in the right place?
Well, the people, the scheme has to get fixed. I think Zimmer can do it, but the people better bow up because that's the part that scares you. Again, part of that is just personal pride. I'm not going to I don't care if I'm in the wrong gap, but you're not going to take me and dump me into the lap of another man. At some point, that part's got to show up.
It feels like it's definitely personnel, and part of it is they do the outside zone and they run them out there, and they get the linemen essentially get out leveraged because they're faster than them. So then the next play, the D lineman's like, all right, I'm going to be fast to the spot. Right. And then they're fast to the spot, but they're high to try to get there fast. And then the linemen push them back. Yeah. So it's definitely personnel. The scheme has been proven to work, but the personnel can't accomplish it.
I've been wrong about some stuff in my life, but this Saints offensive line has a chance to be the all-time wrongest I've ever been. And I think the Dallas Cowboys were the same way. I think the Cowboys watched the Saints in week 1 and said, it's Carolina. They're not going to do that to us.
Yes.
And then they come in and did it to them, and they got some soul searching to do. And that was the message in the locker room after the game. We got to figure some stuff out. We weren't ready for this.
And we came to the season saying Dallas needs to stop the run, but we thought this team is constructed to stop the pass. They got bombed on too.
They did.
They did nothing well.
Nobody's
just running past them.
8-man pro and a guy wide open, that shouldn't happen.
At least they're only playing Derrick Henry, who's desperate at 0-2 this weekend in their next game. You think that team's going to try and run the ball at him? We'll see.